Escape to Spain and back. I was desperate for any kind of escape. So when the opportunity came to move to Spain and live with my father, I grabbed it like a lifeline. He'd left Sweden years before. I knew him mostly from blurry childhood memories and the occasional phone call. Suddenly, he was offering me a place to stay on the sunny southern coast of Spain. I didn't hesitate. Within a few weeks, I packed what little I owned and said goodbye to the grey skies of Sweden and the ghosts of my past. I traded them for a Mediterranean sun and a father I barely knew. Moving to Spain felt like being reborn. I landed in a world of palm trees, beaches, and a language I didn't speak a word of. It was terrifying and exhilarating. For the first time, I was away from my brother's shadow and the suffocating chaos of home. No one knew me as the quiet, damaged kid. I could pretend to be anyone, even pretend to be normal. I moved in with my dad, who ran a small restaurant in a coastal town. We were practically strangers. He was busy with work, and I was awkward from years of barely speaking to my own family. But he put me to work right away as a busboy, and oddly enough, that helped us bond. Shoulder to shoulder in that hot kitchen, hustling between crowded tables. We started getting to know each other in bits and pieces during the lulls. Working in that restaurant was an education in hustle and charm. I learned to carry 3 plates at once, greet customers with a smile, even when I felt like an idiot, and survive the madness of a dinner rush. At night, I'd collapse into bed exhausted, the clink of glasses and chattering still echoing in my ears. The work was hard, but I liked it. It gave me something I'd never had: routine, purpose, and a place where I'd started to come out of my shell. I had to talk to strangers, recommend dishes, crack the occasional joke. At first I was terrified, but slowly repetition dulled the fear. Sometimes I'd catch myself laughing with a customer or chatting with the cooks, and I'd stop and wonder, who is this guy? Part of me felt proud. Another part of me felt like a fraud, waiting for the old me to resurface and ruin it all. Living with my dad came with its own adjustments. He wasn't the warm and fuzzy type, more like a stoic workaholic, but he wasn't cruel. He mostly left me alone when we weren't working. In the evenings he'd sit with a beer on our little balcony overlooking the sea, and sometimes he'd invite me to join him. I'd watch the sunsets, and every now and then he'd ask about Sweden, about Mum. I gave short answers, old habits. But Spain offered a peace I had never known. No drunken chaos in the living room, no brother tearing into me, just a gentle rhythm of waves and the hum of cicadas lulling me into something that felt like calm. Still, I couldn't stay in that bubble forever, and after about a year, I felt restless. I was 18 and life runs fast at that age. I needed movement, so I booked a flight back to Sweden. I returned not as the scare kid who'd left, but not quite a man either. I had tasted something better. I just didn't know if I could hang on to it back in the cold, familiar streets of home. I couldn't go back to the apartments with Mum. My brother had moved out, and oddly enough, ended up in Spain too. At first I thought he followed me just to mess with me, but I realized something. Over that year we both have grown up. His words didn't bite anymore. I didn't care. I had finally learned something important. Words can poke and irritate, but they only hurt. if you let them. But Mum, that was different. I couldn't return to the misery, the alcohol, the way simple people created huge problems out of simple events. That chapter was closed. I was legally an adult now, starving for independence and still trying to make up for all those lost years. Through a friend, I landed a job bartending and a small flat just outside town. Freedom. It started small, bouncing between gigs at local nightclubs, then behind the bar at a popular pub. Suddenly, I was in the heart of the nightlife world. Neon lights, pounding music, crowds of laughing and flirting people, and me right in the middle of it. At first, it was overwhelming. The club scene was loud, fast, full of confidence and charisma, everything I wasn't. But bartending came with a strange power. With a shaker in my hand and music in my ears, I could pretend to be one of them. And when everyone's had a few drinks, including me, it gets easier. Social barriers crumble. I reinvented myself, not the quiet kid anymore. Now I was the smooth-talking party guy, up for anything. I overcompensated like hell. If my teen years were a dry emotional desert, my late teens were a flood. I partied like I was racing against time, because I was. I'd close the bar, then follow the regular to some after party. Shots, more shots, flirtation, dancing, repeat. I dated non-stop, if you could even call it that. It was more like an endless stream of short romances and one-night stands. Blonde, brunette, tall, short, attention was new and thrilling, and I chased it like a drug. I told myself I was finally living. But underneath it, I knew I was trying to fill a hole. I wanted someone to care, someone to hold me, someone who could give me what I never had, emotional safety. But I was fishing in the wrong ocean. What I was looking for could never be found in the stormy waters of nightclubs and bars. The party life wasn't just for weekends. It became my every night. I'd finish at 2 a.m, then head out for just one drink that turned into 5. We'd crash couches or dance till sunrise. Some nights I barely remembered getting home. I'd wake up at noon with a dry mouth and a pounding head thinking, what am I doing with my life? Then shake it off again and do it again. It felt like freedom. Nobody could call me a loser now. I was the wild bartender with endless stories. I wore that like a badge of honor. From the outside, I was living the dream. No curfews, no rules. A job that felt more like a party. Women, fun, friends. My new brick of a phone buzzing non-stop. But inside the cracks grew deeper. I was tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. The anxiety I'd buried for years hadn't disappeared. It was just drowned in liquor. And like some cruel joke, the more I partied to forget, the emptier I felt. I'd lie in bed after a long night, stomach churning, head pounding, and feel it. The same loneliness I thought I'd escape. I didn't know how to stop. The train had no brakes. And I was the one shoveling coal into the engine, afraid of what might catch up to me if I ever slowed down. Hi, if this story meant something to you, if it helped pass the time or just made you feel a little less alone, consider subscribing. It helps more than you think. You're also welcome to share it or take a look at one of the books I've written. They carry many of the same themes: life, struggle, the search for meaning. I'll keep posting as long as I can. And yes, some episodes might be rough around the edges. The sound, the pacing, even the voice. But that's the point. I'm not aiming for perfection, just honesty. Life's not polished, neither is this. Take care of yourselves, and if you're doing fine, look around. Someone near you might need a little care. Thanks for listening and for being here.